Alright, what we're looking at is the brake caliper, front caliper. 2011 Infiniti G37X, so the all-wheel drive. Bought the car last fall and noticed that over small bumps, I was getting a rattling noise out of the front end. It kind of sounded like a loose hubcap. It was a slight metallic clanging noise, really you could hear it inside the cabin with the radio off. Certainly driving down like a residential street, 15-20 miles an hour, with the windows down, you could hear this rattling and clanking. So I replaced the stabilizer end links, I replaced the stabilizer bushings. Someone had mentioned on one of the Infiniti forums that they had a caliper rattle, and as I've done some research, it doesn't seem to be common on this car, but it is. I see it in a lot of Ford vehicles, a lot of heavy duty trucks are talking about the same thing. It rattles when they hit bumps. So what I found is the caliper rattles, or it's loose. My goal today is to rebuild the caliper in terms of new brake pads, new hardware, and the new all the rubber bushings in it. So you can see it's loose. So that's kind of the sound that I get when I'm down the road. You hit bumps. And some of it sounds like the heat shield, I get it, but this thing rattles. So I'm gonna take it apart. I'm gonna clean it up as best as I can. Put it back together and hopefully get rid of the noise. I mean, I guess if I don't fix it, I would have to, well, my next step would be the new slide bolts. Because I guess it's possible. You can see that it rocks back and forth. That's what I hear when I go down the road. So the whole caliper rocks basically side to side. So I don't know what's going to happen when I get into there. Sorry, it sounds like feels like it's wiggling. If I can stabilize a little bit. So, wish me luck. I'll take it apart and see what happens. So I got the pads out. The hardware's still in. I've got new hardware. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clean the back of this up. All the mating surfaces. Get all the rust out of it. Ensure that I'm giving it an opportunity to seat correctly. And what I'm going to do is put slide pins back in and use a wire brush with the slide pins in to just keep debris out of the area of the slide. There's a lot of rust. I don't know if this has any impact. You can see all the areas where the hardware goes is rusty. Let me get back there. Front and back. So I'm going to clean all that up, as well as the caliper, which is rusty. Clean all that up and give it a shot. Just tedious with a small brush. Just getting these channels cleaned out. I didn't see any lube in there. That's probably a bad thing. I think that they're supposed to be lubricant. I've got some silicone caliper lube for all the areas that we have movement. So my hope is that this is not a hardware failure, a poor or a failed caliper that I need to replace. My hope is that someone did a terrible brake job, did it fast, cheap parts, didn't prep it properly, didn't lube it properly, and so that's going to create the issue. Like I said, I've got a new rubber pieces here, so I left them in so that I can sand around or get around them without contaminating the slide area, because they are greased, but who knows, it could be factory grease. cleaning the caliper. Look at how rusty that is. I don't know if that's a good thing, irrelevant. Well, obviously it's not a good thing. But I'm gonna see what I can do to clean those up as well, because that is a ton of rust that's caked in there. So I just think it's poor maintenance. We'll see. Here's the original hardware I just took out. So I've got the pads, the hardware, and the boot assembly. Here's the slide pins. Here's the top. I don't see any imperfections, damage, wear marks. I don't see anything that would indicate that I need to replace this pin, nor on the bottom one. I mean, I can see there's a shiny spot, right, where something's been rubbing on it, but there's no depressions. You can't feel any imperfections with your fingers, so I don't believe there's any reason to think that these slide pins are bad. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean everything up. I've wire brushed everything. I've got the master cylinder, the caliper back in. I'm going to brake clean everything, lube it, and put it back together. We'll see what happens. All right, slides are rebuilt. Rubber bushings on the bottom one. Slide's nice. So, as per the instructions that come with these pads, because these are the ones with the shims on the back, I'm going to put caliper lubricant here, obviously in the top, put the hardware in, put a little bit more in, and then I'll put some on the back of the pads where they meet the caliper and the pistons. According to the manufacturer, you're supposed to put a small layer of silicone grease. Let me get that done. Got the new hardware installed. I've taken the new brake pads and I've lubed them. You can see the blue lubricant, just a small amount all the way around, and then I also lubed this pin right here, because that pin will pull back on the brake pads and pull them away from the rotor to prevent them from dragging. So I guess, I don't know, apparently that's an anti-drag. Let me go ahead and put this together and see what happens. So I've got lubricant everywhere that I think it needs to be, being a non-professional brake installer. All right, there it is. Oops. Anyway, let me go ahead and finish this up, both sides. Put the caliper on. I'm gonna lube both the inboard and outboard a little bit where the caliper touches, and then we'll see what happens.